Before we get started, I need to explain a few things about body language. People in most cases neither lie or tell the truth, they tell their belief. So when you watch a person with an opposing belief, you must understand there are no blatant lies. A sociopath, on the other hand, lies to gain power, whether power is position or money. They will lie to obtain it, and their lies will come across as belief. Their body language will translate it as belief because they have no guilt for the deception. They believe it is theirs already, they just need to get you to give it to them. Liars love reading out responses and practice speeches. By doing this, they can control their body's responses. A body response is called a tell, and for each tell a liar is able to control, a new one is immediately made. Even a practiced speech can be identified merely by its rhythm. With that being said, let's get started. Okay, I hope you just could tell that I practiced and read you something. It's very rhythmic, and everyone has their own beat. Well, there's particular beats. Mine happens to be a 3-beat, which is a melody, and it will put you to sleep. Lynch, on the other hand, has a 4-beat, which is popular beat for all popular music. Top 10 list, all of them are 4-beat rhythms. If you're reading or you've practiced speech, a practice to control your tells is not necessarily someone being deceptive. It could be that they're trying to cover up fear. They're trying to cover up anxiety. They're trying to cover up insecurities. And a good way to cover up deception, especially in an interrogation, which is what I'd like to call these congressional hearings. The first thing I want you to see is her practiced speech as she recites it. It'll give you a good indication of when she's doing it if you can recognize her beat pattern.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss how we can continue working together to ensure the security of our nation and the strength of our communities and the safety of our people. Now, as we gather here this morning, I know that we are all thinking of the 2 bailiffs who were killed and the sheriff's deputy who was wounded in a shooting in a courthouse in Michigan yesterday. The Department of Justice stands ready to provide whatever help we can to state and local authorities.
All right, that's her reading. This will be her practiced answers. And she pretty much has 4 responses. No, yes, I can't answer right now, or I don't know.
Career agents and prosecutors. And in considering the matter, there was no connection, there was no need for a recusal or an independent prosecutor.
Well,
and as I indicated,
And you can see her beat pattern as she's reciting in an answer that she has practiced. Notice the individual sitting directly behind her. We're going to be paying attention to this woman and this gentleman. They will be paying attention to her. They're already in stressed facial expressions for the situation that they're in. Later in this, they are also reminded, or I should say Lynch is reminded, that she is under oath and she could be charged with perjury for lying, which stresses them even more because they already know that. They're going to be our tattletales. She's going to say at a point, this matter was handled like any other matter, and he's paying attention to her, he's looking directly at her. He's going to do a mouth movement, pursed lips, stressing at that, which would indicate that it was not handled like any other matter. This female is going to react to her saying there was no need for an independent prosecutor. And she will also have a mouth stress mark on her. I'll watch that real quick.
career agents and prosecutors who handle matters of this type every day with independence, with efficiency, with thoroughness, and the matter was handled like any other matter. It was
And
reviewed
stress.
through the chain by those independent career agents and prosecutors. And in considering the matter, there was no connection, there was no need for a recusal or an independent prosecutor.
Well,
And as I
and
indicated
stress.
before, I'm incredibly
So far we have We did need an independent prosecutor, and the matter was not handled like any other matter, just from the two individuals who are not meaning to tattletale on their boss, but they are. This gentleman is going to stress in the mouth when she says, "Let me be clear," when answering a question, why did she defer the decision to Director Comey?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. Let me be clear that my decision was to accept the recommendation of the team.
This gentleman is going to react when she says unanimous decision. He will be looking straight at her, and his eyes will start in the center and come around down. It'll go down and to the right. It's almost like an eye roll, but it's not an eye roll. It comes down and to the right. He's accessing a memory as she says unanimous decision. The fact that he accesses a memory when she says that, and he goes down into a downward look at the same time, it's an opposing memory. What she's saying is opposing his memory. So we can say that it was not a unanimous decision. Look at this gentleman first. Throughout this entire answer, he is extremely stressed. His forehead is furrowed. He's constantly in a inward. He's got his head down, his shoulders kind of hunched in as she talks. He pulls himself in. This answer stresses him greatly. The question was there any kind of information that Comey had that she didn't? And she is saying that Comey did have his area and she had her own, and that the team was the ones making the decision. She keeps going that's her repeat. That stresses him greatly. So it would say that, to me, he did not have information that she did not have, or that the team did not have. And then a little later, she is wide-eyed shocked. This stresses her greatly. And we'll get to that.
To speak to that, Congressman, I think it's important to note that the director and I have very different roles in this investigation, and therefore very different amounts of information about this investigation. I am speaking about the information that I received, which again, as I've noted, was the team recommendation. Director Comey was speaking from his position as someone.
Also for him, as you watch him, he'll throw his head back as, yes, I'm standing behind this statement. And you saw just a little bit ago, he could not actually get his head completely up, which is another reason why it doesn't fare well with him. And go back and you see him try and bring that head back up, but he can't. He can't keep it up like he's been doing.
I am speaking about the information that I received, which again, as I've noted, was the team recommendation. Director Comey was speaking from his position as someone who was more direct.
There's her wide-eyed moment. He was speaking from his position, and he didn't apparently have a position. For her to sit there and have that wide-eyed moment, he was speaking from his position. He was not speaking from his own position. He was speaking from their position, because if it's not his position and she keeps referring back to the team, it's the DOJ's decision that he's speaking from. Sit there and replay that one as well.
Speaking about the information that I received, which again, as I've noted, was the team recommendation. Director Comey was speaking from his position as someone who was more directly involved in the
wide-eyed
information.
The two individuals we've been watching are very stressed out about the question that's coming and the answer that is presented to him. Remember, Ms. Lynch has been reminded about perjury. And this is a team of representatives that have been going after the criminals in Washington. As many walls as they've been hitting, they have made it very clear that Congress is tired of the lawlessness. So when you see their faces at the stressful mark as we go through this, he is asking, did she want Comey to make that decision?
Rather than you.
Well, Congressman, with respect to the usual process, it is
and you can see his face right here. is extremely stressed. He's got his brow furrowed. Hers is more furrowed than in the other lines of questioning. Although she has not relaxed. I couldn't get over the fact that she could even get more furrowed. And he can no longer stand behind her again.
In fact, the way in which most cases are handled, that the team of career investigators or prosecutors make a recommendation and go forward with an action. I can also tell you that
did you lead anybody to think that you would prefer that Director Comey make the decision not to prosecute rather than you?
I'm sorry, sir, I couldn't hear the beginning of your question. I apologize for that.
Okay, I'll speak more loudly. Did you make any suggestion to Director Comey?
I just want to point out too, I'm sorry, sir, I couldn't hear your position. Could you repeat that? Someone who is very skilled at manipulation and lying will do that. It'll give their brain more time as he repeats for her to think up an answer.
Directly or indirectly, that he should be the one to decide whether or not to prosecute rather than you, which is traditionally the case.
No, sir. I had no discussions with the director
You
on
see
that point.
this face?
Nor had I made any decisions.
And
to
then
that
the mouth
point.
open.
You
Go back and see that.
traditionally the case.
No, sir. I
Hear the mouth.
had no discussions with the director on that point. Nor had I made any
And then
decisions
the mouth
to that
opens.
point.
And you say
I had no discussions with the director at that point. She is extremely stressed. And the mouth comes open. It's like a shock moment. You scare someone, they scream out loud. She's not screaming, but her mouth is open. And we can sit there and say definitively that Comey was giving his marching orders. The decision did not come from Comey. Comey did lie when he said this was his decision. And I believe his only saving grace was he laid out the case against Clinton before he said it.
you had no discussions. When I say directly or indirectly, I mean through associates or anyone else.
That is correct.
Okay.
And then what I would say, though, is that, as I indicated before, the process that we followed in this case.
You see her starting to breathe. After you've been in this stress, and now mind you, I've sat there and made a video and cut down the parts that I wanted. After you've been that stressed for that long, you have to stretch out. Throughout the 5 hours that they were here, he would do face exercises to stretch out his face. And she would take deep breaths. She could not unfurrow her brow, but she would take deep breaths. I imagine that she probably suffered a massive headache after all this, or is suffering one towards the end of it.
Was in fact a very common process. I chose to make it more public because I wanted to make it clear that there was no inappropriate influence.
All right. All right, understand that this was 5 hours of videos, and I have condensed just the highlight reel for time purposes. To see the entire thing, I'll leave a link in the description so that you can go watch it for yourself or find all the spots and watch the entire answer question scenario. But understand, I'm just showing you the highlights. I watched each individual to find out what their norm was, what their stress was, over and over again. With that being said, thank you for watching. Please like it. And if you like the videos, please subscribe. And thank you for all. And please share the knowledge.